Okay, so the Stanley Cup final was set today. Clearly, the Florida Panthers will face off against the Dallas Stars. What a day that was. And the trades keep on trickling in, too. So more of those as the show continues here on our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Congratulations, and take about everyone involved in our trade coverage today from 11 a.m. Eastern to about 5 minutes ago. Well done, everyone. Front-facing, behind the scenes, involved in it. Take a bow. Good to be part of the team. Now then, a couple of things. Brian Burke's going to stop by here in a couple of moments. Zach Phillips has been very busy. Playing the keyboards behind you right there. I'm just going to sort of try to make you part of the band here. Zach, I'm just going to try to make you part of a small town strip club every time we announce you coming in. It's going to be playing the keyboards in the background. We have a lot to get to today. And look, the Florida Panthers stole the show. The Dallas Stars stole the show. The Colorado Avalanche did themselves a real big favor, not just last night, but today as well. We're starting to see gap. The Vancouver Canucks really did not do a whole lot, and then there was an open mouth insert foot moment from the general manager, which we'll get to here in a couple of moments. But before we get to what's on the show today coming up here and a lot of trades to go over, what stood out most to you? To me, it was a lot of following the Rantanen news and the Wyatt Johnston extension, so I was kind of all over Dallas today, but what did it for you?
Rantanen was the big one for me. I feel like a lot of people were waiting for that domino to fall.
Yeah.
Like, where's he going to go? Is that going to happen? And then once we saw that, it felt like there was a lot more trades that started kicking into gear. There was obviously people who were still kind of moving about the day, and that wasn't going to bother them. Winnipeg being one of those teams who just kept moving. But it did feel like we were all waiting on that. And then when that finally hit, it was like floodgates open. It felt like we started seeing a lot of trades come in. Kudos to you. You were on that one first there, on the Rantanen.
But if it doesn't happen on the show, did it really happen? If a tree falls in the forest, then no one's there to. Thanks for that one. Broken clock moment. Blind squirrel finds a nut, I suppose. And then there was a Wyatt Johnston situation too. No, look, just glad that we were able to get it out there, and the analysts had a good chin scratch about it. Listen, I thought the analyst panels were great. I thought Laz continues to impress so much. Barney, I've worked with for years and known for years. He's always good. Irf was fantastic. Carter Hutton is an emerging star, and Maddie Larkin from the website as well with the trade analysis and the grades was fantastic too. So had it all out, and there's more trades trickling in, and it's let's just get to what's on the program today, and we're going to chime in with people on the chat here coming up in a couple of moments. And yes, I expect the lead story here to be Daniel Sprong to the New Jersey Devils. Let's see if Zach, you and I have symbiotic brains here. Are we on that? Oh no, okay, so Burkie gets billing over Daniel Sprong. Okay, whatever, I suppose. Just because he managed teams in the NHL and won the Stanley Cup in 2007 with the Anaheim Ducks, fine. Trade deadline recap with Brian Burke. Lots to get to from someone who was part of it, and I hope that we get the Brian Burke line early as soon as we get Burkie on. For those of you who are with us yesterday, and for those of you who have been with me ever since Brian and I started broadcasting together, you know exactly what I'm talking about today. So Dallas big winners. They secure the services of Mikko Rantanen and sign the 8-year contract extension. We'll go over that one. We have a whole lot to get to today. Listen, I know that when I always have a hard time saying winners and losers on trade deadline day, because winners, kind of like in the offseason or free agency, you just look at and you say, whoever picked up the biggest name players, they won deadline. But then I remind myself, and I'll remind everybody too, in the summer, we all thought the Nashville Predators had won the offseason because of Brady Shea and Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. Don't worry, here come the Preds. They're taking another step, pencil them in, conference final, etc. They're going to do some damage. So as I'm sure Brian will tell us here in a couple of seconds, it's not necessarily the big name that you bring in at trade deadline. Just like it's not always the big free agent you bring in on July 1st. Sometimes it's the tweaks. It's not the big trades. But nonetheless, from a show business point of view, this was a fantastic day. And someone who understands hockey and show business joins us every Friday here on The Sheet. He is a former NHL general manager. He is the one and only Brian Burke, and he joins us as now, Brian, trade deadline has come and gone, to which Brian Burke says what? I'm setting you up here.
I checked. again.
And what happened?
And the NHL confirmed they're only awarding one Stanley Cup.
Only one Stanley every year. Yeah, well, first of all, it's good to have you on the beat because you're the only one that checks, Burkie, every year to make sure they're only giving away one Stanley Cup. I will give you homework next year. I want to know if they're only going to be using one puck for future games, but we'll get to that on a different show. Dallas stealing the show today. So the Mikko Rantanen deal with the Carolina Hurricanes. The Maple Leafs helped themselves. The Florida Panthers just got extra rattier now. Like, if you didn't think that the Florida Panthers were miserable to play against, they just added Brad Marchand to the mix. This is after last week adding Seth Jones to the mix. Colorado helped themselves a lot. When you look at today, let's just go reverse triangle, big picture, and then drill down. What jumps out most to you, Burkie?
Okay, first off, I think I read somewhere in the Hockey Hall of Fame, there is a puck that lasted through an entire game. It was never shot out of play. It's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm
going to throw a dart, and you're going to think that I'm a real geek. I think it was from a Minnesota-LA game.
I think it was Minnesota for sure.
I think it was Minnesota. Okay, but yes, that is true. There was one game where they only used one puck, correct.
But as far as today and winners and losers, I mean, you've touched on all the big-name players that moved and the big changes that were made. Colorado clearly made a lot of noise. Florida clearly made a lot of noise. Boston made a lot of noise going the other way. Yeah. Tampa Bay got a lot better. Toronto got a lot better. What a dogfight. But I'm going to say it one more time. There is only one cup. This is the problem with the math, the arithmetic. It doesn't work this time of year.
Yeah.
There's going to be 20 teams that got better, some for different reasons, but the teams that are getting better, thinking they can win it all, like if between the two Florida teams, well, only one of them's coming out. I got news for you.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this. I'm gonna let you choose. Okay, so you've gone to the restaurant. They handed you the menu. On the one side of the menu, it says happy, and on the other side, it says grumpy. Do you want to start with grumpy topics today, or do you want to start with happy topics today? I really hope you say grumpy.
Grumpy.
All right, grumpy. Here we go. This is new territory for the Boston Bruins. You know, going back to when they won the Stanley Cup in 2011, we've seen a consistently good, competitive, aggressive, at times Stanley Cup-worthy Boston Bruins. And now for the first time in this generation, they're taking the step back. You know, they moved Marchand today. They moved Coyle today to Colorado. We saw Justin Brazeau go to the Minnesota Wild. Brandon Carlo goes within the two trades within the division. I don't know how much that matters to you, Burkie, but like one to Florida, one to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Carlo goes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is virgin territory for this generation's edition of the Bruins.
Well, I hope ownership understands what's being done here. It takes a tremendous amount of balls and courage. It takes a lot of chutzpah.
Yeah.
And I hope ownership understands that what Don Sweeney did today takes a lot of guts. And it's the right thing to do. They reached the point. They had a standard of excellence for a dozen years. They won one cup. They've been in contention every year. They had great players. They retired over time one by one. It was time to make this move. But not many guys have the guts to do it. I hope ownership is smart enough and gutsy enough to acknowledge that. And Donnie Sweeney doesn't pay a price for this because that's the risk. They stripped it right down to the wood.
I'll be honest with you. I'm more than a little bit surprised to see Brad Marchand leave. Now, you know better than I do the way the contract negotiations can go, and there's nothing saying that Brad Marchand can't come back on July 1st, a la Keith Tkachuk goes from St. Louis to Atlanta and then back to St. Louis so many years ago. But I don't know that Boston likes their legends leaving to go somewhere else during the shady side of the mountain of their career. Patrice Bergeron retires as a Bruin. I always got the sense that they wanted Zdeno Chara to just have that, you know, after the Ottawa trade, obviously, and the Islanders before that, but have that clean run as a Boston Bruin before calling it a career. Does the Marchand move surprise you from Boston's point of view? And just put your head back and fantasize for a second. You now have a team in the NHL that has Brad Marchand, Matthew Tkachuk, and Sam Bennett on it. No thanks, Burkie.
Yeah, no, I just wonder, you got to find playing time for everyone. Everyone's got to find a role. Sometimes too much change is difficult and hard for a team to absorb. I worry if Florida didn't go too hard today, but we'll see. We'll find out. I applaud the acquisitions. I love Brad Marchand as a player.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's weird to think of him in anything other than a Boston Bruins sweater. I felt the same way when they traded Jake Gensel to Carolina. I said he didn't deserve that. I felt the same way about this. So I hope there's a way to come back. My guess is this is a Steven Stamkos type situation. They want the player back, but term was a huge issue. That's my guess.
Right. So who helped themselves most significantly for the playoffs? Like I mentioned off the top, tongue in cheek, okay, the Stanley Cup final is set. It's the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers. But in your mind, because again, like I've pointed this out to you before, you and I have talked about this countless times. When you won the Stanley Cup in 2007, you've always cited the Brad May move as the most important trade that year that you made.
Well, we were very close. Obviously, we felt a lot of change wasn't needed, but we didn't defend either. The Stanley Cup champion Anaheim Ducks will not be remembered as one of the great teams of all time, even though it was clearly one of the best teams in 20 years because we didn't repeat. I don't think if you don't repeat, you can't claim you're one of the best teams of all time, in my opinion. So that was a problem for me. But we had Teemu and Scott Niedermayer both retire right after the year ended. We never recovered from that. Yeah. But that being said, I think you look at what Colorado did, you look at what Dallas did, it's remarkable. It's amazing how much better they've gotten in a short time. And it's a great thing for the game to see those type of rivalries get sharpened like that and heightened right before the deadline.
So we're going to bounce around a lot of things here today. And I'm glad you mentioned that Anaheim team in 2007. Now, I was one of those guys that if I had a vote for the Conn Smythe Trophy, top of my list would have been Sammy Paulson. Third line center, I thought you guys had the best third line in hockey. Moen and Rob Niedermayer with Sammy Paulson. I thought Sammy Paulson was tremendous. And we've talked about before how third lines can really help you win the Stanley Cup. We think of Tampa with Yanni Gourde, whom they have back now. But that's why I want to get to Charlie Coyle and the Colorado Avalanche. So Nathan McKinnon's a big dog, and you have Brock Nelson, and now you have Charlie Coyle as well. Like I look at Colorado, and if you believe he can win down the middle, I look at him and I say, he's not the same player that Sammy Paulson was, but in spirit. You know, we know about the high end of Colorado. They've shored up the goaltending, and now all of a sudden they've got themselves a solid third-line center in Charlie Coyle.
Well, they rewrote the goaltending book earlier in the year. It's amazing. They did. They switched out both goaltenders. Yeah. So if Colorado is successful again, that will be what's remembered. Is they took a lot of nerve. What they did too, switching out both goalies. It's hard to do. It's very rarely done, and it's not almost never successful if you do it. So that's amazing. And then the changes they made. Charlie Coyle to me is a prototypical third line center, and he played up higher in the lineup. Should have been a third line center a couple of years ago. He's big. He's a right shot. He's a great kid, a wonderful young man, works hard. The only thing, the difference between him and Sammy Paulson to me is Sammy was smaller, but Sammy had a little more bite. Yeah, Charlie Coyle's a good player, plays hard, but Sammy had bite. And Charlie doesn't provide that same bite. But they definitely got better. Look at the lineup now. They can dress.
Oh, I know. It's good on the Avalanche. First of all, that Central Division, look, all of a sudden, Brandon Tanev comes in, Luke Schenn comes in. That's Winnipeg. We're going to get to Dallas here in a second, and now you've got Colorado loading up. First of all, I'm just dying for a Colorado-Dallas series. I miss those games, and I miss those series dearly. They're so wonderful and violent and highly skilled. When you look at that Central Division, all of a sudden, like Burkie, you thought it was strong before. Everybody loaded up. Everybody.
Yeah, not finishing in first place is going to carry some awful consequence for at least one team in the East and at least one team in the West. Yeah. So that premium now, trying to get that first spot, is going to carry a lot of weight now. But yeah, they loaded up. It makes for great television, great ratings, great matchups. I'm excited about it. I love it. I love big days like this. But again, you just always got to temper yourself and say, I checked. Because there's going to be bitter disappointment. The price tags that were paid for all of these moves, it's horrendous. It's like the third world debt.
But you know what? I do wonder, too, how much See, here's what I'm wondering about. Now, you can talk to it, you always do, but like really put on your GM's hat here. High prices, yes, but unlike previous years here, post-pandemic, the cap hasn't been flat. So how many general managers are looking at trade deadline and saying, you know what? Yeah, the prices are high, but we have more room to fix mistakes. Or if we paid a little bit too much, we can clean that up in the offseason because now, the joints are a little more greased because we have more cap space. Does that work for you at all?
No question, that's the thinking behind it. But the problem is there's only maybe 15 quality players that will dramatically upgrade your team, maybe 20. So if everyone spends $10 million of this new money on a player, they're one player better. They're not going to change their team around overnight. So I don't think the supply is there, or the demand is there, but maybe not the supply. Mm-hmm. So having money is nice, but unless you can buy something useful with it, you're better off just keeping it in the bank.
Let me ask you about the Dallas Stars. I mean, they were the head before the Brad Marchand news hit. The Dallas Stars were the headline maker of the day. Mikko Rantanen goes to the Dallas Stars. Logan Stankoven, 2 first-round picks and a pair of thirds, go to the Carolina Hurricanes. This after Michael Granlund and Cody Ceci come in to help with the forces. Now, Jim Nill, Dallas general manager, has not been shy about telling staff that we're going big game hunting this year. There's some speculation that if Calgary fell out of it, maybe a Nazem Kadri goes to Dallas, maybe Rasmus Andersson goes to Dallas. Like, Dallas was in and around big names all year long, and they got the biggest here at deadline in Mikko Rantanen, and they re-signed Wyatt Johnston. It is a 5-year deal, 8.4 is the AAV, automatically maybe the best value contract in the league considering Johnston's potential. What do you make of what Dallas was able to do today?
Well, I think they've done a great job. Mind you, 2 first-round picks, but where they pick, it's always going to be around 27 or higher, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not, you can discount those picks a little bit, but 2 first-round picks. I think Carolina did a good job. I think they did a terrible job of getting into this predicament, but I think they did a good job of extricating themselves from it. Mm-hmm. Logan Stankoven is a player that will make a difference. Mikko Rantanen, obviously, they're counting on getting the Colorado Mikko Rantanen, not the Carolina Mikko Rantanen. He didn't do much there. Yeah. He got a little better the last couple games, but they're counting on him. And they got a reunion of Finns, and Finns like each other, so it's good.
It'll be interesting too. Watch the Dallas Stars go up against the Colorado Avalanche and watch Mikko Rantanen play against his old team. And clearly, he tends to excel in the Western Conference when you look at what he's able to do with the Avalanche. The other thing about this one, Burkie, too, and I'll put the two players together that highlighted Dallas today, Mikko Rantanen and Wyatt Johnston. Like, eventually Jamie Benn is not going to be on this team. Eventually Tyler Seguin is not going to be on this team. But when you look at bringing in Rantanen and extending Wyatt Johnston here, we talk about windows and how long your cup window is. Like, do you not make the point that by bringing one in and extending the other, they've just opened up a few more windows for them to win?
Yes, they've done that. They also inserted a formula for excellence for a long time. That's important in terms of ticket sales and sponsorship and everything. You can take confidence in this team being competitive for 5 or 6 years now, and their window is extended. They were already in the window. They've extended it now, in my mind. They've done Jim Nill's done an amazing job. And that General Manager of the Year award probably has gone to him once. Probably should go to him again soon.
It's been twice. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he might win it again.
He might get the hat trick.
Might get the hat trick. But they're no, I think they've done a really good job in Dallas, and that's stable management, patience. It's good.
The scouting, I mean, hats off to Joe McDonnell. He's done a great job. Rich Peverly with development, and you've been part of organizations like this before. You get on these runs where it's not just the drafting but the development, and kids spend enough time in the American Hockey League, and you complement that with trades, and you're still hanging on to Bork and Leon Bischel, and oh boy, now all they have to do is win a Stanley Cup. That's the easy part, right? What do you make of the Toronto Maple Leafs move? So they bring in Scott Laughton, and they also bring in Brandon Carlo from the Boston Bruins.
Well, Brandon Carlo is the more underrated of the moves, I would say. I think Scott Laughton was the guy they talked about a lot, and that was filled a positional need for him. I think they upgraded there. their biggest positional need was a right shot defenseman who could play, shut down people playing the top four.
Mm-hmm.
I think they filled both those needs. I like what they've done. I think they're a better team. I think the cost is going to bite them a little bit in the ass on the way out. Because I think Fraser Minton's going to be a hell of a player. We're not sure what the rest of the packages are, but they could get bit here a little bit. But if they can win something, that'd be worth it. Now, finishing first has taken on a whole new meaning for the Toronto Maple Leafs, in my mind.
Yeah, all of a sudden you don't want to go near Florida or Tampa in that first round. And I'll tell you what. If I'm a hockey fan, and Burkie, I'm a hockey fan, I want to see Florida face off against Tampa in the opening round.
And beat the snot out of each other.
If I'm the Maple Leafs, that's what I'm caring about.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I want first place to watch these guys go 7 games just destroying one another.
Yeah, that's the wish.
That is a wish. Buffalo Sabres and the Ottawa Senators got together on an interesting deal. Buffalo Sabres got busy. Jason Zucker re-ups with the team. We had talked about that earlier on this week. He wanted to stay. They wanted him to stay. They want veterans around the kids. One of the kids they sent packing was Dylan Cozens, along with Dennis Gilbert, and a second-round draft pick. I want to get to that second in a second, for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker. The second-round pick, to me, is interesting. I know Dylan Cozens hasn't had the best of all possible years, but now the Ottawa Senators have sent someone in Josh Norris who's had 3 separate shoulder surgeries to the Buffalo Sabres. I know it was, if you're Buffalo, you got to make the money work on this one, and obviously it did, but I'm trying to get myself in the head of Kevin Adams here. I'm not sure that I know. And these are, let's not forget, these are 2 teams that are competing for one of those final wild card spots and will probably be in the same position next year and weren't shy about trading with one another. Essentially, even though there's more pieces, this is Dylan Cozens for Josh Norris. What do you think?
Well, I like Josh Norris a lot. He's a really good player. But he's hurt all the time. It's like you said, Jeff. He's not hurt a little bit. He's hurt a lot. He's hurt. He's missed more games than he's played pretty well. So I'm not sure how this works. I'm puzzled by it. I like the player a lot. I think he's smart. He's intense. He works hard. He makes really good decisions, but he's hurt all the time. The number one availability in pro sports, or the number one ability, is availability. This kid's not available enough for me. So I'm not sure I understand this one.
The Edmonton Oilers, by the way, have announced that, Oilers announcing Evander Kane will not return during the regular season. Now, I know a lot of us look at these situations and say one of 2 things. One, hold on, what's going on here? Is this Nikita Kucherov, Mark Stone, Pat Kane all over again? And then there are others, and I count myself as part of this group. This is why I have no problem with any of this salary cap, LTIR, as some would say, chicanery. Why don't more teams do this or use this to their advantage? Where are you at on the situation now with Evander Kane, which looks like the situation in Florida with Matthew Tkachuk, which looked like the situation in Vegas with Mark Stone, which looked like the situation in Tampa with Nikita Kucherov, and looked like the situation in Chicago with Patrick Kane? Long-winded question. Burkie.
Well, they've got a number of things they got to clean up in the collective bargaining agreement. This is one of them. LTIR is one of them. Whether there's chicanery or dishonesty, I know the league has investigated each and every one of these. I know the league has looked into. We had situations when I was in Calgary and Pittsburgh where I had long-term injuries. The league examined each of them closely, the medical records, everything. Mm-hmm. So the league is on top and satisfied that to this point, any chicanery or whatever word, any maneuvers have been legal within the system. But it's something that continues to perplex fans. When your team loses out and they had $18 million of cap room going into the playoffs, like with Tampa Bay the one year, and same with Vegas, people ask questions and get upset. They're like, well, it's clearly an unlevel playing field. So I think that's something they can address in collective bargaining. But I can tell you, I've had this conversation with Bill Daly and with the lawyers at the league and gone through it with players. They are confident that these are legitimate injuries when people get hurt.
Brian, I'm with you. I don't know that there's a significant enough appetite to change this. Like, CBA is coming up, right? And this is a time where things like this get addressed and get set. I don't know that there's enough people banging the drum to change this. I know various managers have said, well, we need to have a salary cap in the playoffs or mechanisms where if you can't play in game 82, you can't play in game 1, things like that. But I'm just not sure. And listen, you're a manager, you know managers. I don't know if there's an appetite to change it. I really don't.
Well, the appetite to change it might come from the fact that the union has stuff they want. They'd love to keep this the same way. Management would love to change it. The players have things they want. There's a laundry list. Whenever you're going to collective bargaining, each side has a laundry list. That might include more regular season games, fewer preseason games, a different format for the World Cup. They're all things that have to be worked out, but they've got their laundry list, trust me. And they'll come in and they'll put their list against the leagues and try and work out an extension, hopefully without any labor disputes. So that's the hope of everyone. But I think this would clearly be the top, I think, of the owner's position as far as LTIR.
I want to play something here for you now, Burkie. The Vancouver Canucks, relatively quiet. I mean, they made their big move with the New York Rangers with JT Miller. Brock Besser remains a member of the Vancouver Canucks. They moved out Carson Soucy. But Patrick Allvin, I'm not sure if you've seen or heard this before, but this one's a stunner. This one's a stunner. Here's the quote from Patrick Allvin. Quote, "If I told you guys what I was offered for Brock Besser, I would probably have to run out of there." That's a quote from the Vancouver Canucks general manager, Patrick Allvin, who still has Brock Besser in his lineup. Brock Besser is still a member of his team for the remainder of the season. And essentially, there's Patrick Allvin saying, people were offering me pennies on the dollar for this guy. You always gave memorable press conferences. We all, from this side of the microphone, enjoyed the Sedin is not Swedish for headlock and punch me in a scrum. There was the testosterone and hostility and all these. Yeah, you had some beauties. I don't know that I've ever heard you come close to saying something like that by just devaluing a player that's on your roster once trade deadline is gone.
Or maybe you meant it the other way. Maybe you meant that if you realized if you knew the offers I got, you would have thought I would have made a deal or run me out of here. I'm not going to critique.
Not so sure about that one.
I'm not going to critique Patrick Allvin because I like him. He's a friend of mine. I worked with him in Pittsburgh. I have the same reaction. It's probably something. It's on the list of things I wish I hadn't said because I have a long list of those too. I'm not going to not throwing stones at Patrick Allvin. God, if I could take back some of the things I said I would, believe me.
My favorite was still when you were talking to Garth Snow about getting the first overall pick in John Tavares. Would you make the deal for 5 first round picks? No. Yes, of course you would. For 4 first round picks. I'm not going to give you. That was one of my favorite Burkies. But what do you make of the Vancouver Canucks? I mean, this is pretty much silent night. I mentioned they did the deal with JT Miller. That was their signature piece this year, obviously. This is a team that's right in there with Calgary and Utah and St. Louis for a wild card spot. And they stayed the same. No decision to go for it. No decision to take a step backwards.
Well, Jimmy and Patrick Allvin are riverboat gamblers, and they've committed a lot of assets already since they got to Vancouver. I think their feeling is, let's make sure we don't commit more assets if we don't have a reasonable chance of advancing and making the playoffs and winning a round. There's no point. It's not the Vancouver Canucks. It's not the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's not a team that hasn't made the playoffs for a number of years, where they're desperate to make the playoffs for first time in a number of years. Mm-hmm. It's a team that's had some playoff success. So they can, in my mind, I would say, we're not good enough to win a round. Let's not spend a lot of assets and then get our ass kicked on top of it. Let's go out, to do what we have. We believe in the group to this point. We did not strip. We did not strip down. So let's take what we have and see what we can do.
Let's buzz around the Canadian teams here then. Craig Conroy, general manager of the Calgary Flames, has been quite open and vocal about saying recently, no one's going. We're in a playoff spot. Look where Dustin Wolf has us here. It's a rejuvenated Jonathan Huberdeau, etc. We're not moving anybody. And true to his word, they didn't move anybody. And here are the Calgary Flames in a playoff race, as I mentioned, with Vancouver, Utah, and St. Louis. Your thoughts on Craig Conroy?
Well, I don't think Connie's capable of telling a lie. I really don't. I think everything you see of his persona is accurate. He's not capable of telling a lie. He told you he wasn't going to do much. He's going to stand back, and he did. Yeah. So anything Craig Conroy says to me, I take it to the bank.
Edmonton, they've made big moves. Trent Frederick and Max Jones. Jake Wallman comes in. Yes, like the Oilers are very much in. We need to do something here. No one really. I mean, look, the Central Division has loaded up, as we mentioned, but maybe not so much in the Pacific. Your thoughts on what Stan Bowman has done recently? And listen, this team was one game away from winning the Stanley Cup last year. Are they as good, not as good, the same, and do they still have a shot at it?
They're not as good, but they still have a shot at it, and the changes help. Trent Frederick is a useful player. He can play up and down in your lineup. He's good enough to play up in the top six, but he's gritty enough and big enough, and he can play in the bottom six. He can fight. He can kill penalties. He's a useful player. I like that addition. I like Jake Wallman, Providence College grad, really good player. He's got a year left on his contract. He's not a rental. That's an upgrade. So I think they upgraded. I think they got better. Now they're throwing rocks at him for not upgrading in goal. But I said this last week. I believe in Stuart Skinner. I don't think they needed to get a goaltender.
He was great last night, by the way. He was first star last night for the Edmonton. As much as I've been critical at times, you got to when he plays great, you got to note it. And I thought Stuart Skinner was outstanding last night.
Yeah, and you know what, Jeff? A lot of people like to say, I said this. I don't like I told you so, but I said it a week ago on this show or one other one I did. I said they don't need a goaltender. They can rely on Stuart Skinner. I said that. So I don't say I told you so very often, but I told you so.
The pat on your back. You know what they say about Pat?
I believe in this guy. If he gets shelled tomorrow night, I won't say differently. I believe in Stuart Skinner.
Here's the scary thing, though. It's the same thing every year for me with Skinner, because you look at last year's playoffs, he was excellent. But then regular season, there are those stretches where you say to yourself, can we just cross our fingers and hope that he's the same guy in the playoffs? Like, you look at some of the stretches in the regular season and say, like, oh, man, they need to do something. And then the playoffs start, and all of a sudden he turns into the ghost of Terry Sawchuk. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah, no, they needed the new approach from the goaltending coach, I think. Not a new goalie coach. The goalie coach is excellent. They just need a new approach maybe on when he plays, when he doesn't play, when he gets a day off, when he doesn't. Change the rotation up a little bit.
The people have pointed out in the chat as well. Farabee and Frost were Calgary's moves that they made some weeks ago. Pelche and Kuzmenko going to the Philadelphia Flyers. Kuzmenko sent today to the Los Angeles Kings in one of the first deals of the day. All right, Winnipeg Jets. Kevin Cheveldayoff, as we've said before, has one of, if not maybe the toughest job as a GM in the NHL. Yet he gets players, and he gets players to commit to term, and it's a competitive team. You can make the argument it's the best regular season team in the league right now, although I still don't know anyone who's putting their hand up when I say, who thinks the Winnipeg Jets are going to win the Stanley Cup? They bring in Luke Schenn. They bring in Brandon Tanev as well. Your thoughts on Chevy's deadline moves?
Well, I still think the Stanley Cup champion is probably going to come from the East, so I won't put my hand up. I'll put my hand up as far as Winnipeg getting to the conference final. I believe in this team. They've been in first place from the get-go. They got better. They've added players that make them better. Luke Schenn's a wonderful addition for me. Gives them some bite and some leadership. But this is a well-coached, well-drilled veteran team that knows how to win. They didn't get good goaltending last year. I think they will this year from Connor Hellebuck, and they're going to be trouble for me.
The St. Louis Blues are only 2 points out. I'm going to get back to Canada here, but I wanted to make sure to get this in because you know Doug Armstrong certainly for a long time. Are you surprised that Army didn't really do much? That here's St. Louis in the thick of things, and they're right there. And why not St. Louis? Yet there was we all wondered about, Braden Schenn, for example. And they got Colton Parayko, who's out for a while. But your thoughts on the St. Louis Blues? Like only a couple of points out. Now it's a silent day/night for Army.
I believe that they were looking hard at moving a bunch of players. And they won 5 in a row or 5 out of 6. And all of a sudden they're back in the hunt. And I think that's what changed their thinking. And I think you have to. I said this a week ago. You have to respond to your team. So you say, well, I'm thinking of selling. Then you win 6 in a row. Guess what? You might have to change your mind. And they've gone back into contention in St. Louis. And the GM has responded appropriately. He said, okay, maybe this group's good enough. I'll leave it alone. So I like that. I like the flexibility. I think he was ready to sell 5 or 6 assets going into the deadline.
Yeah. I want to get to the Maple Leafs here a little bit more in depth in a second, but your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, this is, in some ways, this recent run where they've got themselves into the mix here, and boy, is Nick Suzuki, ever since the Four Nations, Nick Suzuki is playing a whole different game. Last check was like 13 points in 5 games for Suzuki. He's been fantastic. Maybe new ground here for Kent Hughes, GM of the Montreal Canadiens. What do we do? How much do we reward? How much do we just stand pat? Slavkovsky is developing. Caulfield is developing. How much do we just leave this thing alone right now? Your thoughts on what Montreal did, or more specifically in the Atlantic, didn't do?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said, Jeff. I think they looked at it and said, just like Army said, they had a real good stretch. They made up a bunch of ground, got back in contention, then stumbled. Now they're back sprinting again. Laine's been good. You mentioned the other guys have all been good. And Slavkovsky's had a rebirth. I mean,
yeah.
He and Nick Suzuki both are playing the best hockey they've played. So they look like a different team. They look good enough to make the playoffs if they don't do anything. But I think the expectation or the caution was with the GM is, hey, we look good right now. We're going to stand pat, but we're not going to do anything stupid and add to it either.
Let me close with a quick conversation about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, you've known Brad Treliving for a long time. Yeah. There was a lot of hurry up and do something all week long from Maple Leafs fans. Going back last week, look, Florida made a big move, and then Tampa makes a move, and there's a whole lot of Brad, do something. The thing that we know about Brad Treliving is, and you know this better than most, he's in on everything. Brad Treliving, there are a few managers out there that use their phone and work it more than Brad Treliving. Like when you look at you look at GMs that know the marketplace, Treliving's right up there around the top. Does any of this surprise you from Brad, or is this the Brad Treliving that you've always known? And how good do you think his team is?
Well, I think his team is really good. I think they got a lot better. I'm not sure they're good enough to beat Florida or Tampa, but I think that's why finishing first could be critical. You could change those odds dramatically by one team beating the other one up and advancing. I like what he's done. I think he's a real sharp guy. Like you said, Jeff, he follows everything. He's a compulsive guy that way. He knows everything that's happening. Most CMs do. Most try to know at least 90%, but Brad seems to know all 31 other teams, what they're doing and why, minor league operations, everything. He's very tuned in. And I think he would have quietly worked this trade on Carlo ahead of, it was no to-do about it, no fanfare about it. He probably just went in early and said, look, I think this trade's going to materialize by the deadline. Here's what we do for Carlo. We'll overpay a little bit because everyone did today. But that's the guy we want. And I think he did a real quiet, good job. You didn't hear Carlo's name once until he ended up going there.
Yeah, real quiet. Lamoriello-esque, some might say. 2 things. Burkie, what are you doing this weekend, and how many cups was that again?
1 cup. I'm going to the PW game on Sunday. I'm going to see the Leafs are away, but I've got a St. Patrick's Day parade ball as a former Grand Marshal. That's tomorrow. Then Sunday, I'm going to the PW game. I'm excited.
That's going to be good. It's a big night for the Scepters last night over Montreal. Scepters looked fantastic.
Yeah, they played really well.
They really had, and they really have recently too. All right, Burkie, thanks as always for stopping by. We'll talk to you in 7 days. An exciting trade deadline has now come and gone, as has Brian Burke. Thanks, pal. We'll talk in 7 days.
And I checked. Thanks.
Okay, let me level with you here. Zach, you be part of this conversation. Everybody in the chat, everybody listening, everybody watching. Do you have a person in your life who always says the same thing over and over and over again? And every single time it's funny. Like for me, Burkie's got a couple of them. When we used to do TV together, it used to be me and Elliot and Burkie. It was a Wednesday night Sportsnet package, and Matt Marstrom was our producer. And at the end of every single show, as we were all walking out together, Brian would say the exact same thing, and it would always make all of us laugh. He'd always say, "Good job, Jeff. Good job, Marzi." and we would all laugh. Don't know why he did it every week. It was like clockwork. It was absolute clockwork, and we would all laugh. So every time Burkie comes in with the I checked with the league again. I called this morning, Jeff. They're only awarding one cup again this year.
That's so
laugh every single time. Every
I don't think
time.
I have any of those, but
you
that
don't
is
have
very,
friends like that
very
that say
funny.
the same thing. People in the chat, I'm sure, do. People listening right now on your various pod platforms or watching on YouTube probably have someone in their life. You know, I never mentioned this to you about Burkie. He confirmed this to me. That confirmed, like this is some like big report. He agreed with me on this one. So all those years we worked television together, and then I remember I came to work one day and Burkie sat me down and said, we can't announce it yet, but I'm going to Pittsburgh. We got the Penguins job with Hextall. And I remember saying to him, like, Brian, can I be honest with you about something? I always felt that at the end of every shift, right, at the end of every show that I did with Brian, we do sometimes double headers, sometimes only single games, sometimes regional games. I said, I always got the sense that as someone who's a manager and someone who's a competitor and has always wanted to have skin in the game, I kind of always felt that you didn't like going home not giving a shit who won or lost a hockey game. Because that's what it's like. It's just a game.
Yeah.
And he goes, to be honest with you, yeah, I hate it. I hated leaving the set and not caring who won between, like, you know, Montreal and Minnesota or Toronto and Boston. I hated not caring or not either being really happy or really pissed off. He was like, you know, that's kind of how I've always lived. I'm either happy that we won or pissed off that we lost. And I'm like, yeah, because I always got that sense you left and you're just like, it sucks not to care who won a hockey game. You know that. You live and die with Big Blue.
Yeah, I know. That's like the more I've done media stuff here, and it's kind of being like quick and thrown into some of the stuff fast, but like I've gotten to a point where, you know, I feel like I'm always aware of what's going on in the league and have a good pulse of things. But at the end of the day, I always want the Leafs to win. And I listen to like a lot of reporters and stuff and journalists, and they talk about, no, I don't care. I don't have a favorite team. I'm not a fan. I always wondered to myself, I don't know. I mean, I know you did when you were a kid have teams that you cheered for. But I don't know.
Two of them.
Like how it is for you here now. Just given where you're at, life, career, all that kind of stuff.
I don't.
But I just kind of wonder how it gets to that. I'm not saying it won't get there for me. I do think I will always be a Leafs fan, a psychopath, like at heart. But you know, it's just something I look at. I'm like every day I like live and die by the Leafs. So.
Okay, so one thing, Nick Hout in the chat, Jeff ranting about good goal will always be funny. I will never let that die. And Wes McCauley called goal the other day. The other day, and I was like, yeah. I think I even tweeted it out like, we have a goal. He's just like, rah, rah, rah. Okay, so two things. One, I don't really care who wins. I cheer for people. Like I want people that I know and like, and stories that I care about. Like I want those people to do well, whether they're players or whether they're coaches or managers or Zamboni drivers or peanut vendors. Like I care for people more than I care for teams. But I am in a very privileged position because I do have a replacement because I have kids that play. So those are the games that I cheer at. So I trust me.
That's fair.
I get it. Like I get that fix. I get that emotion. Like I can always look at you after a Maple Leafs loss. Like, I don't know, pick one. Let's see Philly's reaction. Maybe San Jose.
Yeah.
Maybe Vegas. And I can say to myself, you know, I'll watch you on your show and I'm like, fuck, Philly, do you get this mad when you vote? Like, do you get this upset? Like, when you go to decide, like, the leaders of our country, like, do you get this upset, Philly? Like, it's a hockey game. But I do get my fix with kids hockey. So
Fair enough.
I will say that. Oh, look at Stephen Ellis in the chat. Jeff, Mexico versus Iceland. U18 hockey tonight. Who you picking? Yeah, Ellis, whoever you say I should. He also had Jeff was cheering for Kazakhstan
I just read
at
that
the
one,
World
sorry.
Juniors. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. What out? Anything else specifically that jumped out at you today from what was a really, like, you know what, trade deadline the last few years kind of been a clunker. Not today. Because I always go into trade deadline and it's exciting. Like all the trades are all done and this is going to be like a popcorn fart. It's going to be like nothing. Here we go. And then bam, today was just awesome. Trade after trade after trade. I can't tell you how many times I've sat on a set, and it's been like Marek is like half top of my head and half thumbs, doing nothing.
No, today was good. It was exciting. I think Rantanen, the mystery around all of that leading into today, made it a lot more. I would have been, honestly, I would have been kind of pissed if that Elliott tweet last night followed through and it was like, we've got an extension with Mikko Rantanen, because he started it off hearing some talks last night. I see it before I go to bed. I'm like, come on, man, don't do this to me, because like tomorrow's just going to be nothing. So I think that led into it. You said off the top, it's hard to announce winners and losers and just getting the best players. I agree with that. And, sometimes like we just did, I just before you came on here, I was on the Leafs show and we were talking about the Leafs deadline, and, we were live when Marchand goes to Florida, and all three of us basically sat there and went like, no, come on, we can't escape this guy. But then we talking about, how do you fit these guys in? And Burkie brought it up. I do have a loser for you though. It's one team that I'm going to say is a loser. You can disagree, that's fine, but I definitively have a loser. I had a little bit of a rant about them earlier in the week. It's the Buffalo Sabres. That trade, I'm look, you know what? We can say all we want about Dylan Cozens, and he wasn't working there, or they gave up on him, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. Say what you will. I still have faith in Dylan Cozens, and maybe it gets proven wrong and it doesn't pan out, and that's the case. And I come back here on the show and say, hand up, I was wrong. I don't think I will be on this one, just based on character of the guy and what we've seen out of him early. Now, the piece that becomes much, much more confusing is, okay, the return, I also don't get that. Like, I have concern that if Josh Norris gets sneezed on, he might be injured again here. But the piece that's most confusing to me is, this is a team you're competing with, Jeff. You're trying to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's like a direct rival. Like, no offense to Buffalo and Ottawa right now. They're not in the same realm as Tampa, Florida, Toronto. They're just not. And I think everybody knows that. I think people in those cities know that. This is unbelievably confusing to me that this deal goes down with a team you're fighting against to make the playoffs this year, next year, and within the entire time.
Don't disagree.
That Dylan Cozens is a part of the Ottawa Senators. I think that was a clear loser today for me.
You go up the gut, Tim Stützle and Dylan Cozens. All of a sudden, I know he's having like Dylan Cozens is. I know like he's like the poster child of what's wrong with the Buffalo Sabres, but there is one element that I've always maintained about Dylan Cozens and other players on that roster, and that is got to the NHL too soon. Not enough time in the American Hockey League. Like that's the story of that is the story of the Buffalo Sabres and players being slotted out of their slot. Now, Josh Norris, I really want to do well. Like remember a second ago I talked about I cheer for players and don't cheer for teams necessarily, because honestly, like you can't be mad at Josh Norris. Like that's the thing. I hear Buffalo Sabres fans and read them say like they're all pissed off and like, oh, I don't want this guy and he's injury prone and all the 3 shoulder surgeries and all this. You're Josh Norris and you're like you think I chose this? You think I chose these injuries?
Yeah.
Like I want nothing more than Josh Norris to be successful, and I want Josh Norris to help the Buffalo Sabres turn into a respectable and consistent playoff team. You talk about like teams that I cheered for when I was a kid. Buffalo Sabres were like it was Buffalo Sabres and Toronto Maple Leafs, because those were the games that we got. Like we didn't have like the million channel universe when I was a kid. I saw Sabres and I saw Leafs and whoever they were playing. And I hope that Josh Norris helps lead the Buffalo Sabres out of this fog of hockey, and into the playoffs one day. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but he's someone that I would cheer for, that I want to do well, because it's got to suck. It has to just absolutely suck being a player. This is why I love Robbie Fabry so much. It must absolutely suck knowing how good you are, and then you're never healthy enough to show it. That's why I love like injured players who always, doesn't matter what, never throw in the towel. Like we're supposed to be celebrating these guys. We're supposed to love these guys. That's why I love Peter Forsberg right up until the end. Remember, everybody's like, oh, you're diminishing how we feel about Peter Forsberg and you're dimming your star and leave the stage while they're still clapping. I was like, we're supposed to celebrate guys that won't quit. Peter Forsberg is playing for like nickels and dimes, trying to find a boot that fits on this wonky foot of his just so we can play hockey again. And one of the best players we've ever seen, the first ever Swedish power forward in the NHL. And we're knocking him for, oh, well, he's not the same guy that he was in Colorado, so we should hang him up. Screw that, man. That's why I would cheer for a guy like Josh Norris. Now, do I think it's going to work out for Buffalo? No. But that's my head. But my heart says, yeah, I really want it to work out. I really do. Yeah. But I looked at that, and the other thing, where's the second round pick come from? What? How? Yeah. I remember. I don't want to say the name of the player, but I remember one. How am I going to phrase this? I remember one agent that I talked to, whose client had just signed an 8-year deal with the team, and in the year that there could have been a lockout, he got his full salary, the majority of it bonus. Essentially, he got lockout protection. And I remember I asked him, I said, how did you get that much lockout protection? He goes, you'll never guess. I go, no, I won't. How'd you get it? He goes, I asked. What? Okay. And they just gave it to you. He's like, yep. Wasn't even much of a conversation. Could we get that year in bonuses? Sure. Like, okay. Like, where does the second round pick come from? Where's the second round pick? Cozens, Gilbert, and a second.
Yeah. I mean, I'm beside myself. I don't know, Jeff. What? I don't know. I don't know. It's the fact that trade happened and then seeing those pieces. Okay. Did you happen to see, by the way, what the return for Marchand is?
No, I haven't. No, I've been talking. What is it?
It is a 2027 second round pick.
And there's more, Zach. You're gonna tell me more. No, there's more information dribbling in here. No,
that's
Elliot,
all.
Twitter, CJ, Dregs. No. Say
that.
say it again in case you might have stuttered. What is it again?
Brad Marchand was traded for a 2027 second round pick. Yeah.
There's an old saying. He robbed the bank and didn't have to wear a mask. And that's in the division. That's not like we sent him to the Western Conference.
So I have two theories. So one was actually, and I think it'll be okay, that was proposed to me by Steven. And he said, wonder if Marchand is a walking corpse after 4 Nations. The other theory I have, and I don't know, maybe neither of these are the case, but the other theory I have, and I wonder how often this happens between GMs.
Yeah.
I scratch your back, you scratch mine. You wanted Brad Marchand. He's UFA at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Here's Brad Marchand for nothing, but
yeah,
something will come back. It's just not announced in this, but something will come back. I don't know. I have no idea how often that happens, or if it does at all.
It's been long enough now that I can say this. Mike Keenan once told me in the Denny Savard, Chris Chelios trade, both managers signed off on it. Chicago's signed off on it. And Serge went to his owner, and his owner said, "We still need something more. Get me a second round pick." And Serge essentially said, like, "No, we've done the deal. But I'll tell you what, I'll go back to him and we'll talk." And Keenan said, he talked to Serge, and he's like, "Look, my owner signed off on this. Like, we have to do this, but we're gonna make another deal, and I'm gonna attach a second round pick to it." But you know what the problem was? Before they're able to make that deal, both of them got fired.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Habs fans,
someone did.
Habs fans out there, technically, the Chicago Blackhawks still owe you a second round pick, and that's from Mike Keenan and Serge Savard.
Time to cash in.
Cash in.
Yeah.
Kent Hughes called Kyle Davidson now. Where's my pick from the Savard Chelios trade? I want that now.
He's using this clip, and he's calling both of them, and they're all four getting on a Zoom call together.
Send this one to Montreal. Yeah. Send
this one. Mike, tell them what they said.
Yeah. Mike Keenan told Marek. Like, so where's our Kyle? Make with the pick now. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Shea Weber also got traded today, by the way. Blockbuster deal, Shea Weber. Yeah. I saw that. I was like, what? What do you mean?
I know.
Yeah. And then I realized, never mind.
Yeah.
Yep. Exciting day today, Jeff.
It was a really exciting day. But we're not done. We still have a little bit of business. Our friends at FanDuel would like to remind you that FanDuel is proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Roster updates from Daily Faceoff's Fantasy Twitter/X feed. We do have 6 games tonight. By the way, are you one of those people? I know my friend Rachel Dory, who actually broke the Fraser Minton part of the Maple Leafs Brandon Carlo trade. Congrats, Rach. She maintains that there should be no games on Hall of Fame induction night and on trade deadline. I disagree vehemently, but what say you?
Okay, so I pitched this actually. The Hall of Fame night, by the way, I just disagree with. I don't know. I think that one's fine. I think it's good as is. The deadline, the only reason I had this idea, and it's not that I don't think that there should be games, but if the NHL wants to really make this a day, or really make this a thing, I think, which really ruins your day, my day, everyone else involved in this.
Okay, so maybe shut up now. Maybe shut up now. Good time to stop. The right time to shut up is right now. It's always a good time to shut up, Zach. It's always a good time to shut up.
The deadline is like 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh my God! What are you doing? What's wrong with you?
And you've got
what is wrong
Marek
with
on the
you?
phone at the desk.
Yeah,
on his computer.
I'll
Camera cuts. Everyone's dialed in watching.
Yeah. The one thing that I've pitched to the NHL previous is much like the draft. You do trade deadline. Everybody's in the same room, and you lay it out in an arena with 32 tables, and so the TV is actually you can see GMs walking from table to table, talking to one another. Because you know what it's like when you get people physically in the same. Now GMs will hate that. Like, get bent, Marek. Like, no chance. You're eating space cake. Get out of here. Not a freaking chance we're gonna do that. But just like to make a TV event. What would that? You tell me you wouldn't be tuned into that? And it would be stupid comments.
Yeah, it would.
It would be dumb comments like, "Oh, look, Kent Hughes has walked over. He's talking to Kyle Dubas." One of the funniest things I ever saw at the draft, by the way, was one general manager holding cigarettes over the other one while he jumped up to try to grab them. Did I ever tell you that story? Yeah. When I write my book, I'll tell you who the GMs are. It's funny, they're holding 3 cigarettes up. He's like, "Give me that, F you, give me that."
Yeah.
The NHL.
No,
NHL.
Marek, that's what I need, though. This is just imagine this. Like, I'm getting word. Kyle Dubas has left his table. Looks like he's gone over to see Brad Treliving. Jeff, what do you make of this? As we know, Kyle was formerly the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Brad Treliving, currently the GM. What could be going on at that table? Well, Zach, I think the 2026 first round pick might be in play here.
I know, it's hilarious. It would be awesome. But tell me you wouldn't watch that. Just to watch all the sidebars, the discussions, and watch someone go over to like to file with Central Registry when there's a trade. Like, come on, like you wouldn't find that.
Could you imagine a lineup at the table? Like, there's just some guy sitting at like a pop up like plastic table, and it's just like Treliving sitting there. He's got papers in his hands. Yeah. He's next to Don Sweeney because they're going up to file this trade together.
Yeah, we're filing first. Beat it. Get back there, Brad. Day late, dollar short. Get to the back of the line.
It would be good TV. But otherwise, I'll say, like, deadline ends at 3. Play the games. I don't care. It's exciting. It's fun. Yeah. But if you're trying to make it a TV spectacle, get rid of the games. Extend this thing out.
Winnipeg faces off against New Jersey tonight at the Prudential Center. The big story involving the New Jersey Devils surrounds
Daniel Sprong.
Bingo. Isn't that you want goals, baby? Jack Hughes goes out, no problem. We got one shiny, slightly dented, slightly bruised, slightly old, slightly used. Daniel Sprong from Coachella, ladies and gentlemen. Big Seattle, New Jersey trade there. Detroit and Washington at Capital One Arena. Utah, Chicago will face off against one another. Minnesota faces off against Vancouver. Brock Besser with the Vancouver Canucks, despite protestations from his general manager, who proclaimed quite publicly that you wouldn't believe the returns that he was getting for Brock Besser.
By the way, I agree with you here.
Shameful. And now go get him, Brock. Go get him playoff spot. Go get him. Get him, Brocky. Go fight for your team, Brock. Show us support from the GM.
Also, even if it wasn't what you were saying, by the way, like I agree with you. This is, why would you say this? Yeah. You think this makes the fans happy? Ooh, Brock Besser's worth a lot. We didn't trade him. They're like watching all these other guys get flipped for like massive hauls, and Alvian's like, you should have heard what we got offered. Oh. I didn't pull the trigger though. Don't worry, Canucks fans. Our guy, he's worth a lot. Like, even if that was what you're saying, like, what the hell? Like, no, don't say that. Why would you say that? I don't know.
Again, what did we say? It's always a good time to shut up. I learned that early in my career. It's always a good time to shut up. I have never taken that advice. So Minnesota, Vancouver tonight. Pittsburgh faces off against Vegas. St. Louis takes on the Anaheim Ducks. That is your Friday night. Trade deadline has come and gone. These are your teams. You've chosen your fighter. Your armies have been put together. And now it's the sprint to the playoffs. Again, if you just look at trade deadline day, it'll be Dallas and Florida. But we know very well it's not going to be Dallas and Florida. It might be Dallas and it might be Florida, but it probably won't be that combination because that's just not the way things work. And maybe by the end of it, Zach, we'll look back at this trade deadline and say, you know what? It was the Charlie Coyle piece that won the Stanley Cup. You know what I'm saying? That it's not going to be the Brock Nelson, but it'll be the Charlie Coyle. Or it might be, it won't be the Mikko Rantanen. It'll be the, oh man, Michael Granlund had a hell of a run.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's also true, yeah.
That's how these things work.
It's like with the HBK line, remember, in Pittsburgh that year. Those guys were so good. So
Bonino,
good.
Bonino,
Nick Bonino.
Harner Ryan Singh.
Best call.
Oh, what a great call. Forever. Okay, listen, thanks to everybody in the chat. Zach, thanks to you. I know it was a busy day for you, both behind the scenes and on the air. Well done. Take the rest of the week off. All right, take the rest of the week off.
Yep, thanks. Appreciate it.
No problem. I'm that nice of a guy.
7 hours of it.
Yeah, I'm that nice of a guy. Are you gonna? Is it date night tonight, or was that last night for you guys?
It is actually my sister's birthday, so we're going to, medieval times. You know what that is? We're going as a family.
I've got kids. You asked me if I know medieval times. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been, so going tonight.
It's fun.
Family's going. Yeah,
it's fun.
Last night I was on call.
When I went there, red one when I went there for one of my kids' birthday parties. It's fun, dude. Go and have a good time. I will report back. Yeah, I'll report back. Have something on my desk by 9 a.m. Monday morning. I want full medieval times review.
Yeah, I will.
All right. Thanks to everyone in the chat taking part. Thanks to everyone who watched all of our trade deadline coverage at Daily Faceoff. Thank you. The programming continues and all through the weekend and next week as well. And it all kicks off with Morning Cup of Hockey. Man, Laz was great on the show today, wasn't he? That guy is getting so good so fast. Him and Colby Cohen. We'll see if he's back on Monday, but nonetheless, Morning Cup of Hockey will be back to kick off next week's programming at 9 o'clock Eastern, right here at our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Congrats to everyone involved in a full. Listen, days like this are beasts. They absolutely are, and I've seen firsthand just how much goes into them, how much planning, how much execution, how much fixing things on the fly to make things look seamless and make things run smoothly. I've seen it happen before at a lot of different shops. When I worked at Sportsnet, when I worked at CBC, we even did one when I was working at Chorus for radio. Like, I know what goes into these things. Bravo to all, everybody involved. I hope you got what you wanted. Whether you're a rebuilding team, whether you're a Stanley Cup contender, or whether you're starting things all from scratch, or you're in that mushy middle, just hoping you can stay healthy and go on a run. Best of luck to your team. I hope you all win the Stanley Cup. But as Brian Burke reminded us again today, he called the league, and they're still only awarding one Stanley Cup. Enjoy your weekend. Back next week for the Sheet. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.